47 times. That's how many times I consciously jumped timelines last month. Not metaphorically, not spiritually. I mean, I literally shifted from one quantum reality track to another, and I documented every single jump. The financial timeline shifted 12 times. The relationship timeline shifted 18 times. The health timeline shifted 17 times, and I'm going to show you the exact protocol I used. The steps, the signs, the verification method, so you can start jumping deliberately instead of randomly. Because here's what nobody tells you. You're already jumping timelines every day. You just don't know you're doing it. Today that changes. Today you become conscious of what you've been doing unconsciously. Today you learn to navigate quantum realities deliberately. Today you stop being a passive observer drifting between timelines, and you become an active navigator choosing which reality you experience. Let me be very clear about what I mean by timeline jumping. I'm not talking about manifestation in the traditional sense. I'm not talking about attracting things into your current reality. I'm talking about shifting your consciousness from one parallel quantum reality to another, moving from timeline A, where certain things are true, to timeline B, where different things are true. These timelines exist simultaneously, all of them. Right now, the timeline where you're wealthy exists. The timeline where you're in perfect relationship exists. The timeline where you're successful exists. They're not future possibilities. They're present realities. And timeline jumping is the art of shifting your awareness from the timeline you're currently experiencing to a different timeline you prefer to experience. Last month, I decided to document this process systematically. I wanted to know exactly how many times I jumped, what triggered each jump, what signs appeared, what verification I could gather, so I kept a detailed journal. Every decision point, every timeline shift, every reality change. And what I discovered is that timeline jumping happens far more frequently than most people realize. We jump multiple times per day, through decisions, through shifts in consciousness, through changes in frequency, but we do it unconsciously. We don't recognize we're doing it. We don't track the shifts. We don't verify the changes. We just drift between timelines randomly, experiencing whatever reality our unconscious state attracts. But once you become conscious of the process, once you learn the protocol, once you understand the mechanics, you can jump deliberately. You can choose your timeline. You can navigate quantum realities. You can become the conscious architect of which version of reality you experience. Over the past 10 days, everything we've covered has been building toward this. Day 1 through 7 activated your observer consciousness. You learned that you collapse quantum possibilities through observation. Day 8 taught you frequency alignment. You learned that your electromagnetic field broadcasts your state. Day 9 revealed subconscious programming. You learned that your deepest beliefs determine your broadcast. Day 10 decoded Neville's assumption technique. You learned to observe desired reality as already real. And now Day 11 integrates everything into conscious timeline navigation. Because observer effect lets you collapse possibilities. Frequency alignment lets you match desired timelines. Subconscious reprogramming removes blocks to jumping. And assumption maintains your observation of new timeline. All of these work together. All of these create the foundation. All of these make conscious timeline jumping possible. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what I did, the protocol I followed, the verification I used, the signs I tracked, the mistakes I made, the jumps that stuck, the jumps that bounced back, and most importantly, the exact method you can use starting today to jump deliberately, to navigate consciously, to choose your timeline. Because this is not reserved for special people. This is not limited to advanced practitioners. This is available to anyone who understands the mechanics, who learns the protocol, who practices consistently. You've already done the preparation. You've already built the foundation. You've already activated the necessary systems. Now we put it all together. Now you learn to navigate. Now you become a conscious timeline jumper. Let's start with the science that makes timeline jumping possible. In 1957, physicist Hugh Everett III proposed the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. He suggested that every quantum event creates a branching of reality, that when a particle exists in superposition, when multiple possibilities exist simultaneously, the universe doesn't choose one outcome. Instead, all outcomes occur, each in a separate branch, each creating a parallel reality, each existing simultaneously. This wasn't metaphysics. This was mathematics. This was quantum physics. This was Everett's solution to the measurement problem. And while many physicists initially rejected it, the many worlds interpretation has gained significant acceptance because it elegantly explains quantum phenomena without requiring wave function collapse, without needing a special observer, without breaking the mathematics. According to many worlds, every decision you make creates a timeline branch. When you choose coffee over tea, the universe splits. One timeline where you chose coffee, another timeline where you chose tea, both real, both existing, both continuing. When you turn left instead of right, reality branches. One timeline with the left choice, one timeline with the right choice, both unfolding, both real, both available. This means that right now, in this exact moment, infinite versions of you exist. Infinite timelines are playing out. Infinite realities are real, and your consciousness is experiencing one of them. But here's what Everett didn't fully explore. Here's what quantum physics is only beginning to understand. Your consciousness isn't locked to one timeline. Your awareness can shift. Your observation can move. You can jump between the branches. This is what I discovered last month. This is what I documented 47 times. This is what the protocol teaches. You're not creating new timelines. You're not manifesting from nothing. You're selecting which already existing timeline your consciousness experiences. You're navigating between parallel realities. You're jumping from branch to branch. And the mechanism for jumping is everything we've covered this week. Observer effect, frequency alignment, subconscious programming, assumption. All of these determine which timeline you experience. All of these control which branch you're on. All of these allow you to navigate consciously. Now let me explain the difference between timeline jumping and timeline merging. These terms get confused. People use them interchangeably, but they're different processes. Timeline merging is what Neville taught. It's what we covered yesterday in day 10. You assume a desired reality is already real. You hold that observation. You persist in that assumption. And gradually, through sustained consciousness, your current timeline merges with the timeline where that reality exists. The two timelines blend. Your experience shifts. Your circumstances transform. Until eventually you're living the reality you were assuming. This is gradual. This is persistent. This is sustained observation over time. Timeline merging takes days, weeks, months. It requires consistency. It demands persistence. But it creates stable transformation. Timeline jumping is different. Timeline jumping is instantaneous shift from one reality track to another. It happens in a moment, through a decision, through a frequency shift, through a sudden change in consciousness. One moment you're on timeline A, next moment you're on timeline B. The shift is immediate, the change is sudden, the jump is complete. This doesn't require weeks of assumption. This doesn't demand months of persistence. This happens in a single decision point, in a quantum moment, in an instant of choice. But timeline jumping is less stable. The new timeline can be harder to anchor. You can jump back easily. You can bounce between realities. You need specific integration practices. You need anchoring techniques. You need stabilization methods, otherwise the jump doesn't stick. So which is better? Neither. They're different tools, different methods, different applications. Timeline merging is better for major life transformations, for complete reality restructuring, for permanent shifts that need to be stable. Timeline jumping is better for course corrections, for opportunity capture, for rapid reality shifts, for navigating decision points. And often you use both together. You jump to a better timeline through a decision. Then you merge with that timeline through sustained assumption. The jump gets you there fast. The merging makes it permanent. The jump is the spark. The merging is the fuel. The jump is the shift. The merging is the stability. Use both. Master both. Apply both strategically. Now let me show you the 3 types of timeline jumps. Understanding these categories helps you recognize what's happening, helps you verify shifts, helps you track your navigation. Type 1 is minor jumps. These happen multiple times per day. Every small decision creates a minor jump. You choose to take a different route to work. Timeline jump. You decide to call someone instead of texting. Timeline jump. You pick one restaurant over another. Timeline jump. These minor jumps create subtle reality changes. You might meet someone you wouldn't have met. You might avoid traffic you would have hit. You might have a conversation that shifts something small. Most people never notice minor jumps because the changes are so subtle, because the differences are so small, because the timelines are so similar. But when you become conscious of them, when you start tracking them, when you document them, you realize they're happening constantly. And sometimes a minor jump leads to a major opportunity. Sometimes a small decision creates a big shift. Sometimes what seems insignificant opens a completely different path. Type 2 is major jumps. These happen weekly or monthly typically. Major jumps occur at significant decision points. When you accept a job offer, when you end a relationship, when you move to a new city, when you make a big purchase, when you start a new practice. These decisions create noticeable timeline branches. The difference between the 2 timelines is obvious. Your life looks different. Your circumstances change. Your reality shifts measurably, and major jumps come with clear signs. Synchronicities spike dramatically. People start treating you differently. Opportunities appear from nowhere. Your environment begins reflecting new reality. Dreams show you alternate outcomes. You feel the shift viscerally. Major jumps are easier to verify, easier to track, easier to document, and they're more stable than minor jumps because the decision was bigger, because the commitment was stronger, because the change was more definite. Type 3 is catastrophic jumps. These are rare but incredibly powerful. Catastrophic jumps completely restructure reality. Everything changes simultaneously. Your entire life looks different. All major areas shift at once. These jumps often get triggered by extreme events. Near-death experiences, serious illness, major trauma, profound awakening, intense ceremony, peak experience. In these moments, consciousness shifts so dramatically that you jump to a completely different timeline. A timeline where your entire trajectory is different, where your past seems to rearrange, where your future possibilities completely change. People who have catastrophic jumps often report Mandela effects. They remember things differently than others do. They recall events that didn't happen in this timeline. They recognize they're in a completely different reality than before. Catastrophic jumps are destabilizing initially. They create disorientation. They cause confusion. They require significant integration. But they also create profound transformation. Complete life change. Total reality shift. In my 47 documented jumps last month, 31 were minor jumps, 14 were major jumps, and 2 were catastrophic jumps. The minor jumps I tracked through daily decisions. I would consciously choose differently than my habitual pattern. And I would watch what changed. What opportunities appeared. What synchronicities emerged. What shifted in my experience. Most minor jumps created small improvements. Better parking spot, unexpected conversation, avoided problem, small financial gain. But 3 of the minor jumps led to major opportunities, because I made a small choice that opened a big door, because I took a different route that led to important connection, because I shifted slightly and everything cascaded from that small change. The 14 major jumps happened at clear decision points, saying yes to an opportunity I would normally decline, ending a commitment that felt complete, starting a practice I'd been avoiding, making a purchase I'd been hesitating on, having a difficult conversation I'd been postponing. Each of these decisions was a clear fork in the road, a definite choice between timelines, and each time I jumped, I tracked the signs, the synchronicities that spiked, the people who responded differently, the circumstances that shifted, the reality changes that appeared. 11 of the 14 major jumps stuck. They created stable new timelines. I'm still on those timelines now. But 3 of the major jumps bounced back. I jumped to a new timeline, but I didn't anchor it. I didn't integrate properly, and my consciousness slipped back to the previous timeline. This taught me crucial lessons about anchoring, about integration, about stability, lessons I'll share in the protocol. The 2 catastrophic jumps were unexpected and profound. The first happened during an intense meditation. My consciousness shifted so completely that when I opened my eyes, reality felt fundamentally different. People I knew seemed to be slightly different versions. Events I remembered seemed to have happened differently. My entire sense of trajectory changed. The second catastrophic jump happened through a major decision. I made a choice that felt like jumping off a cliff. And when I landed, I was in a completely different reality, a timeline where opportunities I never imagined were suddenly available, where relationships I thought impossible were suddenly real, where limitations I believed were fixed were suddenly gone. Both catastrophic jumps required weeks of integration. Both created periods of disorientation. Both demanded complete identity restructuring. But both also transformed my life more profoundly than anything else. If you're understanding that timeline jumping is real, that it's happening constantly, that you can learn to do it consciously, then you need to subscribe immediately, because tomorrow in day 12 we go deep into timeline anchoring, how to make your jumps permanent, how to stabilize new realities, how to prevent bouncing back. This is advanced reality navigation. This is consciousness technology at the highest level, so subscribe now. Turn on notifications, because this series is teaching you to become a master of quantum reality, and you cannot miss a single transmission. Now let me show you how to recognize when you've jumped timelines, because most people jump constantly without realizing it. They experience the signs but don't recognize them. They notice the shifts but dismiss them. They feel the changes but explain them away. But once you know what to look for, once you understand the markers, once you recognize the signs, timeline jumps become obvious. You start seeing them everywhere. You start tracking them consciously. You start verifying them systematically. The first and most common sign is the Mandela effect. This is when you remember something differently than how it currently is. You remember a movie quote one way, but it's actually different. You remember a brand name spelled one way, but it's spelled another. You remember an event happening, but others don't recall it. This isn't false memory. This is timeline jump evidence. You're remembering accurately from the timeline you were on before, but you've jumped to a timeline where things are slightly different, where that detail changed, where reality diverged. The second sign is déjà vu, that feeling of I've been here before. I've experienced this exact moment. This isn't psychic premonition. This is timeline overlap. You're experiencing a moment that existed in multiple timeline branches, a convergence point where different realities intersect. When you feel déjà vu, you're often at a decision point, a moment where timelines can branch again, a quantum junction. Pay attention to déjà vu moment. They're showing you that you're at a navigation point, that you can jump consciously, That choice is available. Use those moments strategically. Make conscious decisions during déjà vu. Jump deliberately at those junctions. The third sign is people suddenly treating you differently. This is huge. This is one of the clearest markers. You jump timelines and suddenly someone who was cold becomes warm. Someone who ignored you suddenly notices you. Someone who was difficult becomes easy. This isn't them changing. This is you experiencing a different version of them. In the new timeline, your relationship dynamic is different. Your history together is slightly different. Their perception of you is different, and they respond accordingly. When multiple people shift their behavior toward you simultaneously, that's strong evidence of a major timeline jump. When your entire social environment feels different, you've definitely shifted realities. Track this. Document this. Notice who treats you how, and watch for sudden changes. The fourth sign is synchronicity spike. After a timeline jump, meaningful coincidences multiply dramatically. You think of someone and they call. You need something and it appears. You wonder about something and the answer shows up. The quantum field is confirming your jump. It's showing you that you're on a new timeline. It's providing evidence of the shift. When synchronicities suddenly increase, when coincidences become ridiculous, when the universe seems to be winking at you constantly, you've jumped. You're on a new reality track, and the field is responding to your new frequency, to your new observation, to your new consciousness. Track synchronicities obsessively. Write them down. Count them. Notice patterns, because they're your navigation feedback. They're telling you which timeline you're on. They're confirming your jumps. They're guiding your next decisions. The fifth sign is physical sensations during or after a jump. Dizziness, time distortion, feeling slightly out of body, tingling sensations, energy shifts, spatial disorientation. These aren't medical issues. These are consciousness adjusting to new timeline. Your awareness is recalibrating. Your body is synchronizing with new reality frequency. Your system is integrating the shift. Some people feel these sensations strongly. Others barely notice. But when you jump deliberately, when you're conscious of the process, you'll often feel something physical. A moment of disorientation, a brief sense of unreality, a feeling of shifting. Pay attention to these sensations. They're confirming the jump. They're marking the transition. They're showing you the shift happened. The sixth sign is dreams showing alternate outcomes. After jumping, you might dream about the timeline you left, about how things would have gone differently, about the path you didn't take. These aren't random dreams. These are your consciousness processing the jump, integrating the choice, acknowledging the branch. Sometimes dreams preview timelines you could jump to. They show you possibilities. They reveal options. They map potential futures. When your dreams become unusually vivid, unusually prophetic, unusually alternate reality focused, pay attention. Your consciousness is navigating at quantum level. Your awareness is exploring timeline branches. Your system is showing you the navigation map. The seventh sign is quantum glitches increasing, things appearing where they weren't. Objects moving on their own. Electronics behaving strangely. Time seeming to skip or stretch. Physical reality feeling less solid. These glitches are reality adjusting to your new timeline. The matrix is updating. The simulation is recalibrating. The quantum field is reorganizing. When glitches increase dramatically, you're definitely jumping. You're navigating between realities. You're experiencing the seams between timelines. Don't be afraid of glitches. Don't dismiss them as imagination. Recognize them as evidence, as confirmation, as navigation markers. Document them. Track them. Notice patterns, because they're showing you that reality is more fluid than you thought. That timelines are more accessible than you believed. That jumping is real and happening. Now let me give you the complete jump protocol. This is the 7-step method I used for all 47 documented jumps. This is the system that works. This is the technology that creates deliberate timeline navigation. Step 1 is identify target timeline. You must get crystal clear on which timeline you want to jump to. What does that timeline look like? What's different there? What's the same? What would you be experiencing if you were on that timeline right now? Be specific, be detailed, be clear. You're not creating a new timeline. You're identifying an already existing branch, a reality that's real right now. A possibility that exists in quantum superposition. Write down the target timeline characteristics. What would prove you're on that timeline? What markers would confirm the jump? What signs would verify the shift? This clarity is essential, because vague targeting creates random jumping. Unclear intention creates chaotic navigation. But specific identification creates precise shifts. Step 2 is locate decision point. Timeline jumps happen at decision moments, at choice points, at quantum forks. So you need to identify the decision that creates the branch, the choice that separates the timelines. In my financial jumps, the decision points were often small. Say yes to an opportunity instead of no. Invest money instead of saving. Take action instead of waiting. In relationship jumps, decision points were conversations. Having the difficult talk instead of avoiding. Expressing feelings instead of hiding. Setting boundaries instead of accommodating. In health jumps, decision points were practices. Starting the workout instead of postponing. Choosing the healthy meal instead of convenient. Committing to the protocol instead of researching more. Find your decision point. Identify the exact choice. Recognize the fork. Because that's where the jump happens. That's where timelines branch. That's where you navigate. Step 3 is frequency alignment. Before you make the decision, before you execute the choice, before you jump, you must align your frequency with the target timeline. This is everything from day 8. Your electromagnetic field must match the frequency of the timeline you're jumping to. If you try to jump while broadcasting incompatible frequency, you might reach the new timeline briefly, but you'll bounce back. You can't maintain it. You can't stabilize there. So use the coherence practice. Heart-focused breathing. Generate the feeling of already being on the target timeline. Feel from that reality, not for that reality. Create the electromagnetic signature of the life you're jumping into. Spend at least 5 minutes in this frequency before making the decision. Get your field coherent. Get your broadcast aligned. Get your system matched. Then from that coherent state, from that aligned frequency, from that matched vibration, you execute the decision. Step 4 is quantum observation. This is Neville's assumption from day 10 applied to timeline jumping. As you make the decision, as you execute the choice, as you jump, you must observe yourself as already on the target timeline. Not hoping to get there, not trying to jump, but already there, already experiencing it, already living it. This definite observation collapses the wave function. This certain consciousness selects the timeline. This unwavering awareness navigates the jump. You're not visualizing the future. You're not imagining possibilities. You're observing present reality. The timeline you're jumping to exists now. The reality you're selecting is real now. The branch you're choosing is available now. You're simply shifting your observation from current timeline to target timeline. From the reality you were experiencing to the reality you prefer to experience. Make the decision as someone who's already on that timeline. Execute the choice from that reality. Jump while observing yourself already there. Step 5 is execute decision. This is the physical action in 3D that creates the jump. You can't timeline jump through consciousness alone. You must make the actual decision. Take the actual action. Execute the actual choice. The jump happens at the moment of decision, at the point of execution, at the instant of commitment. So whatever the decision point is, whatever the choice involves, whatever the action requires, do it. Say yes, make the call, send the message, sign the contract, have the conversation, start the practice. Whatever creates the branch, do it. Decisively, completely, without hesitation. The strength of your execution determines the stability of your jump. Weak execution creates weak jumps that bounce back. Strong execution creates strong jumps that stick. So when you jump, jump completely. When you choose, choose definitively. When you decide, decide absolutely. Step 6 is verified jump. Immediately after executing the decision, after taking the action, after making the choice, you begin verification. This is crucial because you need to confirm the jump happened. You need to track the evidence. You need to document the shift. Look for the signs we discussed. Did synchronicities spike? Do people seem different? Do circumstances feel shifted? Are quantum glitches appearing? Does your environment reflect new timeline? Write down everything you notice. Every synchronicity, every shift, every change, every confirmation. This documentation serves multiple purposes. It proves to your conscious mind that jumping is real. It trains your awareness to recognize shifts. It provides feedback for refining your protocol. And it strengthens your conviction, which stabilizes the new timeline. I documented every single one of my 47 jumps. What decision I made, what frequency I aligned with, what observation I held, what signs appeared, what verified the shift. This documentation was essential. It turned random jumping into systematic navigation. It transformed hope into certainty. It made the invisible visible. Right now, pause and leave a comment. Write exactly this. I'm ready to jump timelines consciously. Write those words, because when you do, you're declaring your intention to the quantum field. You're committing to conscious navigation. You're announcing your shift from passive drifting to active choosing. So do it now. Scroll down. Leave that comment. I'm ready to jump timelines consciously. Then come back and we'll complete the protocol. Step 7 is anchor new timeline. This is where most people lose their jumps. They successfully shift to a new timeline. They experience the new reality. They verify the change, but then they don't anchor it. They don't stabilize it. They don't integrate properly. And within hours or days, they bounce back to the old timeline. They slip back to familiar reality. They return to previous patterns. This happened to me 3 times out of my 47 jumps. I successfully jumped. I verified the shift. But I failed to anchor. And I lost the new timeline. I bounced back. I returned to the old reality. So anchoring is absolutely essential. Anchoring is what makes the jump permanent. Anchoring is what stabilizes the new timeline. And there are specific practices for this that we'll go deeper into tomorrow in day 12. But here are the basics you need immediately after jumping. First anchoring practice is act from new timeline identity immediately. The moment you verify the jump, the moment you confirm the shift, you must begin acting as the version of you who lives on that timeline, not the version who just jumped there, the version who's always been there. Who belongs there? Who's native to that reality? Make decisions from that identity. Speak from that consciousness. Behave from that state. Don't say I just jumped to the wealthy timeline. Say I am wealthy, this is my reality. Don't act like you're visiting the new timeline. Act like you live there. Like you've always lived there. Like this is simply who you are. This immediate identity shift is crucial because your behavior broadcasts frequency, and if you're acting like a visitor, you're broadcasting visitor frequency, and visitors don't stay. But if you're acting like a native, you're broadcasting native frequency, and natives belong, they stay, they stabilize. Second anchoring practice is ignore 3D evidence from old timeline. After jumping, your physical reality will still show evidence from the old timeline. Your bank account won't instantly reflect new financial timeline. Your relationship status won't instantly show new relationship timeline. Your body won't instantly reflect new health timeline. Because physical matter takes time to reorganize. Because 3D reality lags behind quantum shifts. Because manifestation into form requires time. This is exactly what Neville taught. The 3D shows you your past observation, your previous timeline, your old reality. But if you let that 3D evidence collapse you back into old observation, if you believe physical reality over quantum shift, if you re-observe the old timeline because that's what you see, you'll jump back, you'll bounce back, you'll return to the previous reality. So after jumping, you must consciously ignore contradictory 3D evidence. You must trust the jump over the physical. You must hold your new observation despite appearances. When you check your bank account and see the same numbers, don't observe lack. Observe the new financial timeline. When you look at your relationship status and see the same situation, don't observe loneliness. Observe the new relationship timeline. When you assess your health and see the same symptoms, don't observe illness. Observe the new health timeline. This isn't denial. This isn't delusion. This is maintaining your quantum observation while physical reality catches up. This is holding your timeline while matter reorganizes. This is anchoring through persistent consciousness despite temporary physical evidence. Third anchoring practice is strengthen new reality through repetition. Your first jump to a new timeline is tenuous. The connection is weak. The anchor is shallow. The stability is fragile. But each day you maintain the observation. Each action you take from new identity. Each decision you make from new timeline. You strengthen the anchor. You deepen the connection. You stabilize the reality. Think of it like this. When you first jump, you're standing on the new timeline with one foot. The other foot is still on the old timeline. You're between realities. You're in transition. You're unstable. But as you repeatedly choose the new timeline, as you consistently act from new identity, as you persistently observe new reality, you gradually shift your weight. Both feet move to new timeline. Your center of gravity shifts. Your stability increases. And eventually, you're fully on the new timeline. Fully anchored. Fully stable. No longer in danger of bouncing back. This repetition happens through daily practices. Every morning before you start your day, spend 5 minutes observing yourself on the new timeline. Feel into that reality. Generate that frequency. Assume that identity. Throughout your day, make small decisions from new timeline consciousness. Choose as that version would choose. Speak as that version would speak. Act as that version would act. Every evening, review your day and revise any moments where you slipped back into old timeline consciousness. See yourself maintaining the new reality all day. This daily repetition, this consistent practice, this persistent choosing, strengthens the anchor exponentially. What starts as fragile becomes stable. What begins as temporary becomes permanent. What initially requires effort becomes automatic. Fourth anchoring practice is environment and community alignment. The people around you and the environment you're in both broadcast frequency. And if everyone in your life is treating you according to the old timeline, if your environment reflects the old reality, if your community holds you in old identity, their collective observation creates gravitational pullback to old timeline. This is why it's so hard to change when you stay in the same environment. Why transformation is easier when you move locations. Why new identity requires new community. Because timeline stability is partially determined by collective observation. By the field you're in. By the reality others are holding you in. So after jumping, assess your environment and community. Who still sees you as old timeline version? What environments reflect old reality? What relationships reinforce old identity? And then strategically shift these if possible. Sometimes this means having conversations where you express your shift. Sometimes this means spending less time with people who hold old timeline. Sometimes this means changing your physical environment. Sometimes this means finding new community that resonates with new timeline. This isn't about abandoning people. This is about protecting your jump. About stabilizing your new reality. About anchoring effectively. Some relationships will naturally shift with you. Some environments will naturally update. Some people will immediately recognize and reflect your new timeline. Those are the ones to prioritize. Those are the relationships that support your anchor. Those are the environments that stabilize your jump. But relationships and environments that keep pulling you back, that refuse to recognize your shift, that insist on holding you an old timeline. Those you need to consciously manage. Limit exposure. Protect your frequency. Guard your observation. Until your anchor is so strong that external observation can't collapse you anymore. Now let me explain why some of my jumps stuck and others bounced back. Of my 47 documented jumps, 42 successfully anchored. I'm still on those timelines now. But 5 jumps bounced back. I shifted to new timeline. I verified the jump. But within days I found myself back on the old timeline. And each time I bounced back it was due to one of these failures. The first bounce jump failed because of frequency mismatch. I jumped to a new timeline but my underlying frequency didn't actually match. I executed the decision. I made the choice. But my electromagnetic field was still broadcasting old timeline frequency. So I reached the new timeline briefly, but I couldn't maintain it. My frequency pulled me back. My field collapsed me to the timeline that matched my actual broadcast. This taught me that step 3, frequency alignment, cannot be skipped, cannot be rushed, must be genuine. You must actually shift your frequency before jumping, not just intellectually, not just through wishful thinking, but actually changing your electromagnetic broadcast, actually generating the new frequency, actually matching the target timeline vibration. The second bounce jump failed because of subconscious resistance. I jumped to a timeline that my conscious mind wanted, but my subconscious had programs against it, old beliefs that contradicted the new timeline, deep programming that felt unsafe with the new reality, worthiness wounds that rejected the new experience. So even though I jumped consciously, even though I verified the shift, my subconscious pulled me back. It recreated the old timeline. It collapsed back to familiar reality. It chose safety over expansion. This taught me that day 9's work, subconscious reprogramming, is essential before attempting major timeline jumps. You must clear programs that contradict your target timeline. You must reprogram beliefs that resist new reality. You must heal wounds that block desired experience. Otherwise, your subconscious will sabotage your jump, will bounce you back, will return you to timelines that match your programming rather than your desires. The third and fourth bounced jumps failed because of timeline whiplash. I jumped too fast. I attempted multiple major jumps in rapid succession. Financial jump, then relationship jump, then location jump, all within 1 week. My consciousness couldn't integrate that fast. My system couldn't stabilize that quickly. My identity couldn't shift that rapidly. So I bounced back from all 3 jumps. I returned to previous timelines. I lost the new realities. This taught me that pacing matters. That integration time is necessary. That you can't rush timeline navigation. Minor jumps can happen daily. But major jumps need integration periods, days or weeks between jumps. Time to anchor before jumping again. Time to stabilize before shifting. Otherwise you create whiplash. You overwhelm your system. You destabilize everything, and you bounce back to wherever you feel most stable, which is usually old familiar timelines. The 5th bounce jump failed because of doubt after jumping. I successfully shifted. I verified the change. But then doubt crept in. I started questioning if it was real, wondering if I imagined it, looking for evidence that I was wrong. And that doubt is observation. That questioning is consciousness. That looking for contrary evidence is collapsing wave function. So I re-observed the old timeline through my doubt. I recollapsed old reality through my questioning. I jumped back through my own skeptical observation. This taught me that certainty after jumping is as important as certainty during jumping. That maintaining unwavering observation is crucial. That doubt is deadly to timeline stability. You must hold your observation with conviction. You must trust your jump completely. You must remain certain despite all appearances. Otherwise, your own consciousness will collapse you back. Now let me share the specifics of my biggest successful jump. This was one of the 2 catastrophic jumps I mentioned. The one that happened through a major decision, rather than through meditation. I was facing a choice that terrified me. An opportunity that required complete commitment. A path that meant leaving everything familiar. My logical mind said it was too risky. My fear said it was too dangerous. My practical side said it was too uncertain. But something deeper, some quantum knowing, some consciousness recognition, told me this was a timeline fork. That saying yes would jump me to a completely different reality. That this decision was a catastrophic branch point. So I did the protocol. I identified the target timeline. The reality where I said yes, where I took the leap, where I committed fully. I could feel that timeline. It was real. It existed. It was available. I located the decision point, the exact moment of choice, the conversation where I would say yes or no, the meeting where commitment would be made or declined, the instant where timelines would branch. I spent an hour before that meeting in frequency alignment, deep heart coherence, generating the electromagnetic signature of already living on the yes timeline, feeling from that reality, broadcasting that frequency, becoming that vibration. Then I entered the meeting holding quantum observation. I wasn't hoping the meeting would go well. I was observing myself as already on the timeline where I said yes, already experiencing that reality, already living that choice. And from that state, from that observation, from that frequency, I executed the decision. I said yes completely, definitively, without reservation. The moment I spoke the word, I felt the jump. Physical sensation. Time seemed to skip. Reality felt different. The room looked subtly changed. Their faces seemed to shift. Energy moved through my body. I knew immediately I had jumped. This wasn't imagination. This wasn't placebo. This was actual timeline shift. The verification came fast. Within hours, synchronicities exploded. People I hadn't heard from in years contacted me with opportunities. Resources I needed appeared from nowhere. Doors I thought were closed swung open. Circumstances aligned impossibly. And everyone around me seemed different. Their attitudes toward me shifted. Their treatment of me changed. Their responses to me transformed. Like they were suddenly recognizing a different version of me, because they were. I had jumped to a timeline where I was that version, where my history was slightly different, where my trajectory had always included this yes, and they were responding to that timeline version, not the old timeline version who would have said no. But the real test came in the following weeks, because maintaining that jump, anchoring that new timeline, stabilizing that catastrophic shift required everything I had. The 3D evidence was screaming at me to doubt. Physical circumstances were not yet reflecting new timeline. Money wasn't there yet. Support wasn't visible yet. Security wasn't apparent yet. Every logical indicator said I made a mistake. Every practical measure said I should go back. Every fear program said I jumped wrong. But I held the observation. I maintained the frequency. I anchored relentlessly. Every morning I spent 30 minutes feeling into the new timeline, generating its frequency, assuming its reality. Throughout each day I made every decision from new timeline identity. I spoke from that consciousness. I acted from that state. I behaved as the version who belonged on that timeline. Every evening I revised any moments of doubt, any instances of old timeline thinking, any slips back into previous identity. I protected my frequency fiercely. I limited exposure to people who held me in old timeline. I avoided environments that reflected old reality. I stopped discussing my decision with anyone who couldn't hold the vision of new timeline. I surrounded myself with people who saw the new version, who recognized the shift, who reflected new reality, and I documented everything obsessively, every synchronicity, Every verification, every sign, every confirmation. Writing it down made it real. Recording it proved it to my skeptical mind. Tracking it strengthened my certainty. And slowly, over weeks, the 3D began shifting. Money started flowing. Support appeared. Security materialized. Physical reality began matching new timeline. Circumstances began reflecting quantum shift. And now, months later, I'm fully stabilized on that timeline. That catastrophic jump completely restructured my life. Everything is different. Opportunities that seemed impossible are now normal. Relationships that seemed unavailable are now real. Capabilities that seemed beyond me are now natural. And I can never go back. That timeline is permanent now. That reality is stable now. That identity is who I am now. But that stability came from anchoring, from integration, from persistent practice. The jump got me there, but the anchoring kept me there. The decision created the shift, but the daily work stabilized it. The quantum leap happened in a moment, but the physical manifestation took time. This is the pattern with all successful timeline jumps. The shift is instant. The stabilization is gradual. The jump is a moment. The anchoring is a process. Understanding this prevents disappointment, prevents doubt, prevents bouncing back. Because you know the 3D will lag, you expect the integration period. You commit to the anchoring practices, and you maintain your observation until physical reality catches up. Now let me give you specific verification techniques you can use after jumping. Because verification is crucial. It confirms the jump to your conscious mind. It strengthens your certainty. It prevents doubt from collapsing you back. First technique is timeline markers. Before you jump, identify specific signs that would prove you're on the target timeline. What would you see? What would you experience? What would happen? Be specific. Write them down. These become your verification checklist. After jumping, watch for these markers. When they appear, check them off. Document them. Celebrate them. Each marker that shows up proves the jump, confirms the shift, verifies the new timeline. I had specific markers for each of my 47 jumps. For financial jumps, markers were specific monetary amounts, particular opportunities, certain people contacting me. For relationship jumps, markers were specific conversations, particular behaviors, certain emotional shifts. For health jumps, markers were measurable changes, specific sensations, particular energy levels, and tracking these markers, documenting when they appeared, proving they showed up, made the jumps undeniable, made them real, made them certain. Second technique is synchronicity tracking. Keep a dedicated journal or note on your phone. Every time a synchronicity happens, write it down, date it, describe it. After jumping, synchronicities should spike dramatically. If they don't, if coincidences stay at baseline level, you might not have jumped successfully. But if synchronicities explode, if meaningful coincidences multiply, if the universe starts winking at you constantly, you've definitely shifted. And tracking them quantitatively, counting them numerically, proves the shift scientifically. In normal weeks, I average 3 to 5 noticeable synchronicities. But in the week after a successful major jump, I'll experience 20 to 30. After catastrophic jumps, I've had over 50 synchronicities in a single week. This spike is measurable. This increase is verifiable. This multiplication is proof. Third technique is reality consistency check. Does your environment match the new timeline? Look around. What do you notice? Has anything changed? Are there objects you don't remember? Are things in different places? Do colors seem different? Does your space feel different? Quantum jumps sometimes create subtle environmental shifts, not dramatic changes, but small differences. A book you don't remember buying, a photo positioned differently, a room feeling more spacious. These aren't glitches in memory. These are timeline shift evidence. Your consciousness has moved to a reality where these small details are different, and noticing them, documenting them, tracking them, verifies the jump. I've had objects appear that I don't remember acquiring. I've had furniture seem slightly different. I've had rooms feel spatially altered. Each time I document it, each time I verify it, each time it confirms the jump. Fourth technique is people response shifts. This is one of the most reliable verification methods. After jumping, pay close attention to how people treat you. Do they seem different? Do they act differently toward you? Do they respond to you in new ways? Specifically, track interactions with people who know you well, family members, close friends, colleagues. If they suddenly treat you with more respect, if they suddenly seem warmer, if they suddenly act as if something about you has changed, you've jumped. Because you have changed. You're a different version. You're from a different timeline, and they're unconsciously responding to that shift. They don't know you jumped. They don't consciously recognize the change, but their behavior reflects it. Their treatment shows it. Their responses confirm it. Fifth technique is emotional resonance. How do you feel on the new timeline? Does it feel like home? Does it feel right? Does it feel natural? Or does it feel forced? Does it feel uncomfortable? Does it feel wrong? Your emotional resonance is feedback. If the new timeline feels genuinely good, genuinely right, genuinely resonant, you've successfully jumped and the timeline matches your true frequency. But if it feels off, if it feels misaligned, if it feels wrong, either you jumped to an incorrect timeline or your frequency doesn't actually match this reality. Use your emotional body as a compass, as a verification tool, as a navigation instrument. Right feeling means right timeline. Wrong feeling means course correction needed. Sixth technique is physical evidence. This is the slowest to appear but the most undeniable. Physical changes that match the new timeline. Money arriving that matches financial timeline. Relationship forming that matches relationship timeline. Body changing that matches health timeline. Physical evidence takes longest because matter reorganizes slowly. But when it appears, it's absolute proof. It's undeniable verification. It's complete confirmation. Track physical evidence carefully. Date when things manifest. Document what appears. Record what changes. This creates an evidence trail, a verification record, a proof log that not only confirms your jumps but also helps you refine your protocol for future navigation. Tomorrow in day 12, we go deep into timeline anchoring protocol. Everything I've mentioned about anchoring today, we expand into a complete system. How to stabilize new timelines permanently. How to prevent bouncing back completely. How to integrate catastrophic jumps successfully. How to make any timeline shift permanent. This is the missing piece in most reality navigation teaching. People learn to jump, but they don't learn to stay. They shift realities, but they slip back. Tomorrow changes that. Tomorrow gives you the complete anchoring technology. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure notifications are on. Because day 12 is essential for making everything we've learned permanent. Let's integrate everything we covered today. You learned that timeline jumping is real, scientifically grounded in many worlds' quantum mechanics, and happening constantly whether you're conscious of it or not. You discovered that Hugh Everett's mathematics proves all possible timelines exist simultaneously, that every decision creates a branch, that infinite versions of you exist right now on parallel reality tracks. You understood the difference between timeline jumping and timeline merging. Jumping is instantaneous shift through decision points. Merging is gradual blending through sustained assumption. Both are valid. Both are useful. Both require different approaches and different stabilization methods. You learn to use both strategically. Jump for rapid shifts. Merge for stable transformation. Combine them for optimal navigation. You discovered the 3 types of timeline jumps. Minor jumps happening multiple times daily through small decisions, creating subtle reality changes that compound over time. Major jumps happening at significant decision points, creating noticeable life shifts that require integration. Catastrophic jumps, completely restructuring reality, transforming everything simultaneously, demanding extensive anchoring. You learn to recognize which type of jump you're experiencing, to adjust your expectations accordingly, to apply appropriate verification and anchoring for each level. And you understood that most people experience all three types, but unconsciously, without recognition, without tracking, without deliberate navigation, until now. You learned the 7 clear signs of timeline jumps. Mandela effect, showing you remember differently because you're remembering accurately from previous timeline. Déjà vu, marking quantum junctions where timelines intersect and new choices are available. People suddenly treating you differently because you're experiencing different versions of them. Synchronicity spikes, confirming your shift through meaningful coincidences, multiplying dramatically. Physical sensations during jumps as consciousness recalibrates to new frequency. Dreams showing alternate outcomes as your system processes the navigation. Quantum glitches increasing as reality updates to match your new timeline. These signs are verifiable. These markers are trackable. These confirmations are real, and recognizing them makes timeline jumping undeniable. And you receive the complete jump protocol. 7 steps for deliberate timeline navigation. Identify target timeline with absolute clarity about which reality you're selecting. Locate decision point where timelines branch and choice creates the fork. Frequency alignment, matching your electromagnetic field to target timeline before jumping. Quantum observation, holding yourself as already undesired timeline during the jump. Execute decision, making the actual choice that creates the physical branch point. Verify jump, tracking signs and markers that confirm successful shift. Anchor new timeline through identity shift, ignoring old 3D repetition practices and environment alignment. This protocol works. This system creates results. This technology enables conscious navigation. I used it 47 times in 1 month. You can use it starting today. You learned why jumps fail and bounce back. Frequency mismatch, when your electromagnetic broadcast doesn't actually match target timeline. Subconscious resistance, when deep programming contradicts desired reality. Timeline whiplash, from jumping too fast without integration time between shifts. No anchoring practice, leaving new timeline unstable and easy to slip from. Doubt after jumping, which reobserves old timeline and collapses you back through your own skepticism. Each of these failures taught crucial lessons. Each bounce back refined the protocol. Each return to old timeline revealed what's necessary for stability. And now you have those lessons. Now you know the pitfalls. Now you can avoid the mistakes that cost me 5 successful jumps. You learned verification techniques that prove your jumps are real. Timeline markers you define before jumping, then track after shifting. Synchronicity tracking. Quantifying the spike in meaningful coincidences. Reality consistency checks, noticing subtle environmental changes. People response shifts, documenting how others treat you differently. Emotional resonance, feeling whether new timeline is truly aligned. Physical evidence, watching matter reorganize to match quantum shift. These techniques transform subjective experience into objective data. They prove timeline jumping to your skeptical mind. They strengthen your certainty. They prevent doubt. They stabilize your navigation. Use them religiously. Document obsessively. Track systematically. Because verification makes timeline jumping undeniable. You are not a passive observer drifting randomly between timelines anymore. You are not unconsciously jumping based on habitual patterns and subconscious programming. You are becoming a conscious timeline navigator, a deliberate reality selector, a quantum architect, choosing which possibilities you experience. Every decision is now a navigation opportunity. Every choice is now a potential jump. Every moment is now a quantum junction, and you have the protocol. You have the awareness. You have the technology to navigate deliberately, to jump consciously, to select intentionally. This changes everything. This transforms how you move through life. This elevates you from unconscious drifting to conscious creating. Over the next 30 days, practice this protocol deliberately. Start with minor jumps, small decisions made consciously. Track the shifts, verify the changes, build your navigation skills, then attempt major jumps at significant decision points. Use the full protocol, document everything, anchor properly, and watch your life transform. Watch your reality shift. Watch timelines change. Not through hope, not through faith, but through systematic application of quantum navigation technology. You're not manifesting anymore. You're not attracting. You're not creating from nothing. You're selecting which already existing timeline you experience. You're jumping between parallel realities. You're navigating quantum possibilities, and that's infinitely more powerful. Tomorrow we complete this with timeline anchoring protocol. How to make every jump permanent. How to stabilize catastrophic shifts. How to prevent all bouncing back. How to integrate completely. Day 12 is the final piece, the missing element in most timeline jumping teaching. The reason most people can't maintain their shifts, but you will. Because you'll have the complete system, the full technology, the entire protocol, from activation to navigation to permanent stabilization. So I'll see you tomorrow, in day 12, in timeline anchoring mastery, in permanent reality shifting. Week 2 has transformed you into a conscious quantum navigator. Tomorrow makes those navigations permanent. Stay committed, stay conscious, stay jumping. This is Conscious Observer. Jump your timeline. Choose your reality.